Hello everybody, my name is Patrick and I'm creating this video to share and document my personal journey with A Course in Miracles, which I recently finished reading. I want to clarify that I am a beginner and I am not here to teach the concepts of the book. I'm simply sharing my personal perspective and my experience. And I'm hoping that it might be of help to others also exploring the book for the first time. So my intention is to present a way of reading the book without getting trapped by the concepts of God and the Holy Spirit. Because if you actually look more at what these concepts are pointing to, I think you can get a clearer understanding of what the book is actually teaching, and therefore have a much more rewarding experience. So if you come from a non-dual perspective and are struggling with the book for reasons like the archaic language or the strangeness of the language or the concepts of God, the Holy Spirit, Christ, this video is for you. So I want to present a framework that lets you read the book without fixating on these concepts, that lets you focus on the ideas instead. But to do that, I first have to talk about reality, what reality is. So the only thing we can know about reality is our experience of it. That's the only thing there is, and the only thing that will ever be. But reality, since it's presented to us through our minds, and we are in control of our minds, reality becomes plastic. It becomes something that we can shape as we wish. To illustrate this, consider a cube and try to look for what the front side of the cube is. You can quickly see that there are two possible ways of interpreting the cube. So there's two possible convictions that will lead you to two different interpretations. So your choice of what you want to consider as front and back will lead to the cube looking a certain way. It's not the other way around, that your interpretation is leading you to a conviction. Rather, it's your choice that forms your interpretation. And this goes not only for this cube, but for all things in your life. So what you bring to the table without you knowing it leads to your interpretation of a situation or anything. So convictions lead to an interpretation, and an interpretation leads to our feelings and thoughts about the world. This means that our convictions become the main building blocks when we are creating our own reality. This also means that we have to be very mindful of what convictions we choose about reality. To illustrate this further, we can think about flat earthers. I have nothing against flat earthers. I'm just using them as an example to make a point. So let's pretend you and me are flat earthers, someone who believes that the earth is flat. Then we are forced to explain a couple of things, such as the moon landing, for example. How come that the earth looks round in the pictures taken from the moon? So we will probably explain this by saying that the whole thing was a conspiracy. The moon landing actually never happened. And we will try to look for clues that are pointing to that fact. We will try to find proof in the video footage that it was actually never recorded on the moon, but in some studio or some desert. And we will probably believe that the government and the scientists are also working together to stop us from realizing the truth, that the earth is flat. So from one conviction, we build a bigger and bigger structure of other convictions. So from one simple conviction, we build a whole belief system. So now that we established that convictions are really important, that they are the main building blocks of our reality, this leads us to the next question. What is our most fundamental conviction? Is it maybe what kind of political views we have? If we consider ourselves being liberal or socialists? Or is it whether we believe in science or we're more inclined to believe in spirituality and religion? Is that what forms our reality? When we're thinking in this way, we're actually just beating around the bush. Because we can never see a conviction from within. We can only see a conviction from outside. To illustrate this, think of a magic trick, like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. The magician makes it look so real. So how come the magician constantly succeeds in fooling us? It has to do with our assumptions. Some assumptions that we are taking for granted is somehow being manipulated by the magician. And we never know which one it is, because of this information gap, we get duped by the magician. So to find our most fundamental conviction, I will rely on a book called A Case Against Reality, written by Donald Hoffman. Donald Hoffman is a neuroscientist and is mostly famous for his desktop analogy, where he explains reality as a kind of an interface, like the interface to a computer. The analogy goes something like this. We have icons on the desktop, the interface of the computer. We have icons for our word processor, and we have icons for our web browser, for our images, text files, and so on. But what is the reality behind these icons? In reality, they are just electrical signals being shipped around inside of our computer. We cannot interact with this reality. We can only interact with the icons on the desktop, because the real reality is far too complex for us to understand. And according to Hoffman, so is our reality. It's basically the same thing. And evolution has created our sense organs, our eyes, our noses, and our ears, so that we can perceive reality just enough to be able to interact with it. We only need these dimensions in order to survive. Evolution has actually hidden more reality from us than it has revealed. We can never really know reality for what it is. We can only know the icons that are presented to us through our interface. And of course, there are still laws of physics governing this interface, and we can successfully understand how the interface works and how it's made. But just because you can successfully find the keys in a computer game to get to the next level does not mean that you know what the keys are in a deeper sense. The real reality is still hidden from us. Now, in my opinion, what quantum science has been doing for the last couple of decades is just starting to touch upon that deeper reality. So, if all things are just icons, then one could ask, does it matter if I jump in front of a car? If my body is just an icon and the car is just an icon, and none of them are real? If I believed in this idea, what's stopping me from doing that? Well, even if our reality is only an interface, it does not mean that you don't need to take this interface seriously. When you drag a text file to the garbage bin on the desktop, something happens inside of your computer. And it's the same here. When our body dies, something, of course, also happens in reality. It's just that there is more to it than what we can perceive. Our reality is, in other words, made by evolution to hide complex details from us. According to Hoffman, our most fundamental conviction about reality is therefore that what we see is all there is. That's the fundamental conviction we have. There are many proofs supporting this idea in the book, but this video is not about giving a summary of the book, but I will use this idea to contrast it to A Course in Miracles view, which is actually quite similar. So how come that this illusion becomes so credible, the illusion of our reality? It's of course a result of the indoctrination we're exposed to. Our sensory organs are constantly exposing us to its propaganda. It's literally in our eyes and our ears all the time, 24/7. As soon as we wake up until we go to sleep, we're bombarded with the propaganda. But it does not have to be this way. Remember, our conviction is simply a choice we're making. We can also choose to think about our reality as a tool, which it is. It's, after all, not created for us to believe in like a religion. It's simply a tool for us to navigate around the world, just like a map. My next question is, if we until now have chosen to believe in our sensory organs as the final reality, the truth with capital T, what has that led us to believe? Well, actually everything we take for granted. We believe that everything in life changes all the time and eventually dies. That's the story so far. That it is according to what we perceive. This is according to what we perceive, not even a belief, it's just obvious. Another conviction is that life is all about surviving, competing with each other and replicating. And the big one is that we believe that we are our bodies. Yeah, like I said, it's the big one. If we believe that we are our bodies, we will feel constantly controlled by the inner turmoil inside of our bodies. Because inside of us, feelings are constantly bubbling up and down. Sometimes we're angry and sometimes we're sad for what seems to be without any reason. We never made those choices, and we feel that there is no way around this but to identify as angry or sad, even if we would like to say that we're actually cheerful and happy persons. But the biggest lie is that we believe that we are separate from each other. There's nothing more between us than the air molecules floating around. Nothing in our reality has therefore any deeper meaning. This is the story presented to us through our perception. But remember, this is just a conviction we have. We are born with this conviction, and unless we question it, we will probably continue believing it until we die. And then everything ends. Since it is a conviction, it can be a good idea to give it a name. So I will call this conviction ego. You are maybe not used to think about ego as a conviction, but some kind of material thing, some kind of psychological structure inside your mind that is unescapable. Maybe you have taken psychology classes or something, and in those settings, ego is normally presented as something of a undeniable fact, almost as a part of our bodies. But I believe that the ego is nothing more than a belief. Like I said, a conviction. It's an idea in your head. Its existence is not bound to any law of nature, so the belief that you are your body is what I call ego. And the ego conviction feels so natural. It feels natural to identify with the body. But how come it feels so natural? If you think about it, you're actually not identifying with your body, but with your consciousness. The consciousness is where your experience lives. And wherever you believe that your consciousness resides, that is where you think you are. So if you have a strong belief that your consciousness is inside the body, more precisely in your brain, then you will believe that this is where your identity is located. We think there is no alternative to this, but there actually is. And this opposite conviction I call the spirit conviction. In A Course in Miracles, they call it the Holy Spirit, but I will just simply call it the Spirit for pedagogical reasons. So the spirit conviction is when you are not identifying with your body, but with something outside of your body. You don't believe anymore that the source of consciousness is in your brain, but its source is coming from somewhere else, somewhere deeper. In this way, according to the spirit conviction, the body is merely a receiver of consciousness, just like an antenna. It's taking up its signals from somewhere else. Where this source may be, I cannot say. It's a mystery to me. But this is my belief, that consciousness comes from somewhere else and our body serves no other purpose than being receivers of this signal. As our brain develops, our capability to receive consciousness, of course, gets stronger and stronger. If you choose the spirit conviction, you therefore choose to identify with this source instead of your body. And more importantly, you see other bodies as receivers, just like your body. So you actually share the same consciousness with others. You, of course, have different memories and experiences of life, but your consciousness, the background behind your feelings and your thoughts, is the same. You therefore realize that you share the same identity with others. If you have a hard time understanding this, you can think of a band playing music. From the point of view of the ego, the ego conviction, you would think that everyone is individually creating the music, adding their own contribution to the song they're playing. But from the spirit point of view, it's the other way around. The music is using the musicians to create itself. So if you have ever jammed with a couple of friends and really got into it, you can actually feel that the music is begging you to play certain notes. It's still a collective experience, but you as an individual are not deciding that much. It's actually the music itself that is deciding what it should become. We are not used to this way of thinking, therefore it can feel a bit hard to grasp. Even in popular culture, spirituality is often actually nothing more than a masked version of the ego conviction. In the movies, normally ghosts are portrayed as bodies. When you see the spirit rising from the body, all you see is a transparent version of the body. Probably this is because we have no other way of depicting it. But to me, this is just another proof of how deep the ego indoctrination goes. We still have to include the body in the afterlife. even if we know that the bodies are not relevant in the afterlife. So to summarize what I'm talking about, you can have a look at this picture. To the left, you can see a model of the ego conviction. Here, everyone is identifying as their bodies. Here, everybody is identifying themselves by looking outside to determine who they are. It's like they are saying, I'm not that person or that other thing outside my body. They're creating an identity by exclusion. And to the right, you can see a model of the spirit conviction. Here, the source of identity is outside of the body, and that source is projecting itself onto the different bodies. Here, everyone shares the same identity, and it's more like everyone is saying, that body and everything else I see. Here, they are instead creating an identity by inclusion. So, what kind of structures or belief systems do these two convictions lead up to? If you choose the ego conviction, you will think that your identity is your body. Your identity is constantly exposed to the world. So you become afraid of people, since they can say bad things about your identity. And you become afraid of time, since you see how you're getting gray hairs and getting more stiff as you grow older. Standing still in silence is probably the biggest waste of time you can think of. We become afraid that someone someday will say something bad about our identity, that we smell bad or something like that. Since we're constantly under attack and exposed as identities to the world, we will need to build up our defenses around our identity. That means our body. We will need to use our short time efficiently, get a nice career so we can get a good, nice car and fancy clothes and impress people so we can get rid of the fear of being attacked. In this way, the ego conviction guides our lives through fear. That's the downside of the ego conviction. The upside is that we will feel in control of our destiny. We feel that we can change things in our lives. If something is not working out as we want, we can change it. We can learn new skills and apply them and move towards a different direction. The spirit conviction, as you probably can guess by now, leads to the opposite. You don't believe that you are your body, so you kind of relax a bit more. And you stop caring so much if people talk negatively about you or tries to hurt you in some way. Since you're not your body, nothing is threatened, as they say in the Course in Miracles. Since the body is merely a tool to navigate in reality, you don't take it so seriously. It's more like you're playing a video game. You don't start screaming at the television when you lose a game, right? So the spirit conviction opens us up a little bit more. We start to trust people more. Instead of living a life in constant fear, life becomes more playful and fun. So that's the upside of the spirit conviction. The downside is that you feel less in control of your destiny, since you're kind of acknowledging the fact that you are not in control. But from my point of view, that's actually not much of a loss. You're actually getting a more realistic view on what's going on. So to summarize what I have talked about, reality is plastic. We form it with the help of our convictions. Since we can never know the real reality, we have to choose our convictions about reality, and we better choose them wisely. So we have sound, sight, smell, touch, and taste. We can only perceive these 5 dimensions of reality. But if you take these perceptions as face value, that all you see is what there is, nothing more, it will lead you to the ego conviction. And if you choose to believe that this is only a virtual reality, hiding a deeper reality that's unreachable for us, it will lead you to the spirit conviction. So we have seen that the ego conviction is a very simple model of reality, actually. And due to this simplicity, the ego conviction leads us to suffering. But on the upside, it leads us to a sense of control. We have also seen that the spirit conviction, on the other hand, is presenting a more complex reality that we cannot grasp with our limited minds. And since it's bigger than what we can perceive, we lose a sense of control. But on the other hand, we gain more happiness and a feeling of sharing this life with each other. So my question to you, if you have listened this far, is whether a view that leads to a much simpler and more fulfilling life is an indication that what you previously believed maybe were wrong. For me, that's the case. I feel that the spiritual view is freeing me up in ways I cannot even explain. It feels as if I'm closer to the truth than I have ever been before. Many things in my life just seem to fall into place, more or less. This has been my experience. So for me, each moment is more and more of a gift. Sometimes life is hard, but that's just my label on it. It's not in my control. I'm given reality through my senses, and I'm choosing what to call it. This is what A Course in Miracles means when they say handing your problems to the Holy Spirit. Is when you step aside from reality and admit that you're not in as much control as you think. The ego wants us to dominate life, and that is what leads us to suffering, right? So I'm kind of just trying to make the choice of saying everything, or seeing everything as a gift instead. I don't need to be in control that much. And also my self-image becomes less important. What others believe and think of my body or say about it has not so much relevance for me anymore. When someone looks angrily at me, I tend to smile more, because I don't want to separate myself from anybody. Instead of thinking, fuck that guy, I tend to feel more prone to think about times when I have felt the same way, so I can feel empathy and connect with this person instead of separating from him or her. But because if I'm looking, if I'm connecting with the person, I'm closer to the truth that we are the same identity, just wearing different masks. But if I become angry, I'm going into the ego conviction that we're separate bodies. If I choose to be separate, I'm choosing the ego conviction, and I don't want to do that. This is, of course, easier said than done, and like I said, I'm just starting out on this journey, but I am seeing quickly big changes, and how applying this idea is really relieving me from a lot of stress and making me feel more happy and joyful throughout the day. Yeah, so this is my invitation to you. If you haven't come across these kind of thoughts before, to think about it and maybe even try to apply it in your life. And also go ahead and read A Course in Miracles again. Try again if you failed before, and see if not the way I present it maybe can help you to get through it. So please comment below if you feel you want to reach out to me, or if you have thoughts about what I have talked about here. A big reason for me doing this video is to connect and discuss with like-minded people. So I encourage you to do that. And please also like this video if it was of any use to you. And subscribe to this channel if you would like me to do more of these videos. This way I can get some feedback if I should continue documenting my journey and sharing it with you guys. So thank you for listening to me, and take care.